Good morning, friends. Today, let us discuss the first lesson in your supplementary reader, that is, Vistas. The name of the first lesson is the third level, denotes the third level of a railway station. The third level represents the third platform of Grand Central Station, America. The story is a thriller with suspense and can be categorized under science fiction. Before moving to the story, you have to keep in mind the story adventure which you studied in class 11 and the mental experience of the character Gangadhar Pan Gaitonde. As you have seen, the third level is written by the notable American author Jack Finney. Here you can see the picture of the author. Jack Finney was born on October 2, 1911. His best known works are science fiction and thrillers, including The Body Snatchers and Time and Again. Here you can see the cover page of these two books, Time and Again, The Body Snatchers. Moving to the next slide, before going to the story, I wish to ask you a few questions. Have you ever had an unimaginable experience? Have you ever traveled to a different world? Have you ever traveled to a different planet? Have you ever traveled through the universe? Have you ever traveled to the past or to the future? Please recollect whether you have such an experience in your life. You have to keep all these questions in your mind. You have to keep the lesson adventure in your mind, the mental experience of Gangadhar Pan Gaitonde in your mind before going to the story, the third level. As Gangadhar Pan Gaitonde had got an experience of traveling to a different world, traveling to a different time in the past, here the main character Charlie, he has also got a similar experience traveling to the past. Here you can see a representing model of the Grand Central Station, America, and you can see the character Charlie. Let us have a journey along with Charlie, breaking the logic of science. And what is the logic of science? It is quite difficult for a person to experience that he can live in the past or in the future. Many inventions in science were accidental and unexpected. Some were quite unbelievable for the people who lived in the past. For the people who lived in the past, they never expected this kind of inventions would be possible. Especially before Wright brothers invented the first model of aeroplane, it was quite unbelievable for the people to think that they could fly in the sky. They could cover 1000 or thousands of kilometers within a few hours. No one believed that could speak to a person thousands of kilometers far away before Alexander Graham Bell invented the first model of telephone and the present model of mobile phones. Internet and mobile phones have made long distance to short. Grand Central Station's timetable shows two levels or platforms. So let us come to the story. Charlie identified that there were three levels at Grand Central Station, but the railway timetable and schedule displayed only two. So the Grand Central Station's timetable shows two levels or platforms, but for Charlie it was three, and it was beyond the thinking level of other people or the readers. Now, let us see a few points about our main character, Charlie. Charlie, a 31-year-old guy, was working in an office, was wearing a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band. You can see the picture of tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band, a red color band over it. His wife's name, Louisa, and he has a friend named Sam Weiner. So you will know much about Sam Weiner later, moving to the story. And he had a hobby also. The hobby of Charlie, it was stamp collection. Moving to the next slide. Come to the feeling of insecurity in every human being's life. Charlie had a psychiatrist friend, Sam Weiner. So I told Sam Weiner he was the psychiatrist friend of Charlie. According to Charlie's psychiatrist friend, modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it. And he tries to escape. Who? Charlie. He was trying to escape from the present world because he didn't want to live in the present world. So his third level was a mere imagination, a concept only to escape from the realities of the present world. Everyone wants to escape from all these worries. Each one has his or her own escape mechanism. Charlie's discovery of third level is an escape mechanism from the reality of the world. So according to Sam Weiner, the psychiatrist friend, Charlie's third level at Grand Central Station is an imagination. Now, the Sam Weiner's analysis on Charlie. What are the points made by Sam Weiner to give a proper idea, to give a proper explanation on Charlie's behavior? Let us see. Charlie was not happy with the world. He was feeling fear, worries, and insecurity, and he wanted to escape from the present world. He had his own escape mechanisms. He had the hobby of stamp collection only to escape from reality. Third level was a waking dream wish fulfillment for Charlie. So, according to Sam Weiner, Charlie was not happy with the present world of 20th century which was living, more specifically say the period after 1950s. He had a hobby, that is stamp collection. It was actually not his hobby. It was the hobby of his grandfather. Later, he adopted the hobby from his grandfather. So, according to some, Charlie's hobby was to escape from the reality. So, come to Charlie's justifications. We have seen the points made by Sam Weiner. Now, let us see Charlie's justifications. He was not ready to agree that third level was a purpose for escapism? If so, why third level of Grand Central Station? His stamp collection was started by grandfather. Grandfather didn't want to escape from anything. According to him, even the President Roosevelt also had the hobby of stamp collection. Here you could see what do we generally call the one word for stamp collection known as philately. And here you can see the picture of the American President Roosevelt. So grandfather lived in the 19th century, no doubt. There was no tottering issue in America at that time. For grandfather, it was a genuine hobby. But who knew whether grandfather also wished to escape from reality during his period? Charlie talked about President Roosevelt. Being the President of America in the early 20th century, he might have undergone lots of worries and problems, especially of the world wars. How could Charlie clearly justify that President Roosevelt never tried to escape from reality? Charlie was not ready to agree that his stamp collection was a purpose to escape from reality. Let us see what happened at Grand Central. One night, late summer, Charlie became late from the office. He wanted to reach his home and meet his wife, Louisa. He decided to take the subway from Grand Central. His intention was to reach home at the earliest, turn to Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue, went down the steps to the first level where, from where trains proceeded to other places like the 20th century. But his intention was to go to the second level. So he walked to the second level where the suburban trains would leave. While he was stepping towards the second level, he was ducked into an arched doorway and he got lost his way. So this was what happened to Charlie. His intention was to go to the second level to catch the suburban train, but on the way he was ducked into an arched doorway where he lost his way. Now moving to the next slide. He reached many places. On the way, he reached many places: Roosevelt Hotel, an office building on 46th Street. He reached many places because he missed his way. And he felt that Grand Central was growing like a tree with new corridors and staircases. Here you could see the picture of a tree with branches and leaves. So he felt like that. The Grand Central Station also like a tree with lots of branches. And the branches here denote the pathways, different pathways. That is the and different destinations in the Grand Central. So he felt Grand Central Station was growing like a tree. Many people were unaware of this tunnel. So by the way, through a tunnel, he was moving inside and through the tunnel, and he felt many people were unaware of this tunnel. It was laid under the city where he reached. He heard it was an exit for many, a way to Times Square and to Central Park. Finally, he reached the third level at Grand Central Station. So according to his knowledge, there were only two levels, but he reached a third level. Initially he thought that he had reached the second level, but he could not. He couldn't match anything with that of second level in third level. So let us see, moving to the next slide, you can see how Charlie understood that he was at the third level of the Grand Central Station. The room was smaller, fewer ticket windows and train gates. Here you can see the room was smaller, and information booth in the center was wood and old looking, and fewer ticket windows and train gates. Lights were dim and flickering, and identified they were the old type of open flame gas lights. So in the past, they used the open flame gas lights to lighten the bulbs. Now moving to the next slide. Because of this, he understood that he had reached a different place, means a third level, not the first level or the second level. Again, brass spittoons on the floor. He could see brass spittoons on the floor, which he couldn't find in the 20th century. A man was pulling watch from his pocket. So means 20th century, the people started using wristwatches, but this was a olden type of watch where the people would use a chain to tie, and the person he had pulled such type of a watch from his pocket, means an old type of watch. A man wore a derby hat, a black four-buttoned suit with tiny lapels and handlebar mustache. Charlie never saw so many beards, sideburns, and fancy mustaches. Here you can see the picture of, this is the handlebar mustache. This is called the handlebar mustache. And here you can see the sideburns of this person. The sideburns are the beard hair grown on both sides of the face, and a fancy mustache he has. And here you can see the black four button suit with tiny lapels. Tiny lapels shows means the folding of the coat. That is the tiny lapels. And here you can see a derby hat. Derby hat here. Moving to the next slide. Again, the other features, other characteristics which show that that he reached the third level of the Grand Central Station. Here you can see the newspaper, The World. A newspaper could be seen here, a old type of newspaper. Charlie understood that he was at the third level when he looked at the newspaper. It was The World, the name of the newspaper, The World, which had stopped its publication in 20th century. The newspaper was not available in the 20th century. He noticed that the date on the newspaper was June 11, 1894. So he realized he reached at a stage of late 19th century. He saw a woman with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high buttoned shoes. Here you can see the picture of leg of mutton sleeves. This is that kind of dress. And here you can see the high buttoned shoes. And here you can see on the track a very small courier and arch locomotive with a funnel shaped stack. Here you can see the funnel shaped stack. This is an old type of train in the 19th century. So, from all these features, he again realized he was in a period, he was not in 20th century, he was in a past. And from the newspaper, he understood that he was at the time 1894 and he observed everyone dressed like 1890s. Coming to the next slide, what happened when he went to the ticket counter? Because he wanted to go to his house, Galesburg, Illinois. His house is at Galesburg, Illinois. So he wanted to go to Galesburg, Illinois, and he was a bit excited to see that it's a period of 1894. So he wanted two tickets, one for him and one for his wife, Louisa, to go to anywhere. And he was very much happy to reach Galesburg, Illinois in the period of 1894. So he wanted two tickets. He imagined the place Galesburg, a peaceful world in 1894 without First World War and World War II. So this was the main problem of Charlie, you could understand. So the major incidents in the 20th century, there were the First World War and Second World War. It affected severely all the developing countries, but simultaneously it affected developed countries like America as well. So he imagined the place, how beautiful it would be at Galesburg, Illinois, how beautiful it would be without First World War and Second World War. A very peaceful world, a very peaceful America, a very peaceful hometown, Galesburg, Illinois. So he was longing to go back to live the period of his grandfather. His grandfather lived in that period in the 19th century. So Charlie also wanted to go back to that period. He was longing to go there. The ticket clerk counted the dollar and told Charlie, "This is not money because you have seen this is the dollar." And Charlie gave dollar, but that time the dollar was something different. Charlie observed the money of the time was old style bills, half again big as the dollar used in the 20th century and had a different look. So he identified that the size, shape, and look, everything was completely different of the present dollar and the dollar of the 19th century. So he understood that it would be very difficult because the ticket in the ticket counter, the ticket clerk told that so if you try to cheat, you would be put in jail. So Charlie, he got afraid and he decided to escape and he left the same way because his 20th century dollar was not acceptable in the 19th century. Both are entirely different. Moving to the next slide. Next day, he drew $300, bought old style currency from a vendor. By giving $300, he gave a premium as well, and he got the old style currency from a vendor, a person who sells the old style currency. And he tried to find third level. He again tried to find third level the next day, but he couldn't. Louisa was worried hearing the third level. So when he went back to home, he told Louisa about the third level, that he reached the third level that day, and he got this kind of experiences there, and what were the things he saw there. So when he narrated all his experiences, his wife Louisa, she became so worried about him, and she told him, "Don't search for the third level again." His friend Sam Wiener disappeared in search of Galesburg and went to 1894. So, as we already discussed, Sam Wiener was his psychiatrist friend. It means surely Charlie had some kind of mental problems. He had some kind of worries, some kind of tensions, though he was not ready to accept. He was not ready to accept that he wanted to escape from the present world, but he had. And he wanted his psychiatrist friend, the one who was ready to cure his problems, the one who was ready to take care of him, the one who was ready to give him a solace. He wanted his friend Sam Weiner also to go to the past, and he himself believed, identified that his friend Sam Weiner disappeared in search of Galesburg, and he went to 1894. And how did he know that his friend Sam Weiner was in 1894? Or he reached Galesburg and he was there in 1894. That night, among the oldest first day cover, found an old one. So, what is meant by this first day cover?